Part one of my conversation with Joe Mazzulla.
It is game day. The Baltimore Ravens open up their season with a matchup against the defending champion Kansas City Chiefs.
Cubs combined for a no-hitter.
The Denver Broncos have come to terms with Patrick Surtain on a historic contract.
Can Jacoby Brissett get it done against the Cincinnati Bengals defense? And
so Matt Chapman is going to be staying with the Giants.
The Locked On Podcast Network presents The Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
It is game day. The Baltimore Ravens open up their season with a matchup against the defending champion Kansas City Chiefs.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast.
This is a game day episode for both of us, Chris. Obviously, the Ravens and Chiefs opening up their season today in Arrowhead in Kansas City. They're defending two-time Super Bowl champions back-to-back and 3-time total for that Chiefs team, going up against the Ravens in an AFC Championship rematch. I think this is the game that everybody wanted to see happen in the opening game of the season. How are you feeling about this one?
I feel really good about it right now. I think it's, other than not having Hollywood Brown, you got to feel pretty good with where Kansas City is. I think it's their offense is going to be better than it was last year. We're going to get into that when we get into the biggest storylines, but I feel really good about this game right now. I think the team looks focused, and they are all about this season. Everything about last season is gone. They don't want to talk about last season. They don't want to talk about three-peat. They just want to talk about what they're going to do this year and how they're going to attack teams this year.
And the Ravens are the exact same way. Their media availabilities and what they have said, obviously, they are of the mindset of, look, last year was disappointing what happened in Baltimore here, but the Chiefs are in the way of the Ravens right now, much like the Ravens are in the way of the Chiefs right now to a 1-0 start for both teams. You know, Kansas City last year coming off of their Super Bowl loss to Detroit in the opening game, and that's going to be, maybe the Chiefs do, maybe they don't, but the Ravens have an opportunity here to get off to a fast start, much like the Chiefs do. But let's start with the Ravens, Chris, as we go into some biggest storylines for them. First, we'll talk about Chiefs in the second segment. The biggest storyline for the Ravens coming into the game offensively, there are a lot of them. Obviously, Lamar Jackson is a big one, but protecting Lamar Jackson is going to be a big thing for Baltimore. The Chiefs have a pretty vaunted defensive front, obviously led by Chris Jones, George Karlaftis, and friends. The Ravens lost 60% of their starters on the offensive line. Kevin Zeitler is now in Detroit. Morgan Moses and John Simpson both with the Jets. And they're replacing them not with veterans, but with youth. They have a vet in Patrick McCary who is set to suit up at right tackle on the unofficial depth chart. But other than that, it's a first-year player in Andrew Voorhees, who missed his entire season last year, and Daniel Faalele, who is pretty raw at the guard position. It's a big test for the Ravens offensive line early in the season, and especially in a game that you'd really like to have with your Baltimore. And both with the run game and the pass game, it all starts up front for both of these teams, particularly for the Ravens on the offensive side of the ball.
Can't say I disagree with you, and that's going to be something that's definitely going to be a focus for Kansas City to try to attack all those new offensive linemen. And it's not just the new offensive linemen. I mean, you can still attack the guys that were there last year. When you start talking offensive line play, you start talking about chemistry, how those guys work together, how they're going to pass off stunts and twists and all that fun stuff. And that's really what it's going to come down to, is how do they work together as a unit? And, having a 60% turnover from one year to the next is not going to be fun. And when you start looking again, it's, you go to a practice or a preseason where you only have 3 games and some teams play their starters, some don't. You just don't get game snaps. And it's different than training camp. It's a different pace. It's different in everything. So I'm really curious to see how that line shakes out.
And 2 different preseason approaches for both of these teams. The Chiefs obviously playing their guys and getting them acclimated, the rust getting shaken off in those games. The Ravens, the opposite, which is they did not play their starters. And so maybe there is a little bit of rust. Who knows? Obviously, the Chiefs lost Marquise Brown for this game in the preseason. He will not be suiting up, as you mentioned earlier, Chris. But the other part of this for the Ravens offense is Derrick Henry's the new addition, but the heavy personnel looks the Ravens could bring out against this Chiefs team. You have Patrick Ricard. You have your 2 tight ends that are expected to be on the field together a lot this season in Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. So if you want to run heavy personnel with that group, the The Chiefs have to have personnel to match that, and they certainly do. But how would you expect the Chiefs to go about trying to stop Derrick Henry, those heavy looks, especially if the Ravens run play action off of that and try to get Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely involved?
I think that's one of the key things here for Kansas City is when you look at this Baltimore team, one of the things that has been so hard in the past is Lamar is a dual threat quarterback. And I know you're talking about Derrick Henry in the run, but it kind of plays into the same aspect of it in my mind is in Lamar wants to run to an extent, even when he's trying to pass at times. And that makes it so much harder to defend the pass. But when you start looking at the running game, their running game's been okay, but it hasn't been great. Now you have a talent that has been phenomenal in the NFL over the past several seasons. And you have to think that that's going to be something that they're going to take advantage of. And when I look at it, the big question is they got some road graders that they have as, their starting guard and their right tackle right now. And then you start looking at it from the aspect of, okay, well, they haven't played a lot together. So are they going to be rusty? Are they going to be able to hit the running lanes and hit the blocks that they need to be hitting early on? This is a huge game for both teams, and both teams need to start the season 1-0 because this game could matter when it comes down to playoff seeding in January.
You're exactly right. And I always say September games don't matter in September, but they sure as heck do in December. And that is exactly when you talk about those standings and everything. Every game counts, especially against an AFC rival opponent where you're right, you could be fighting for seeding, conference record, all of that matters. But moving to defense, Chris, for the Ravens, they did lose a lot of talent. Guys like Jadeveon Clowney, Patrick Queen, Geno Stone, that list goes on and on and on. And they're replacing a lot of those guys, again, with youth. So Odafe Owe stepping up for Clowney, Trenton Simpson stepping up for Patrick Queen. But one of the big storylines defensively is how do you stop Kansas City in this Patrick Mahomes offense that now has added weapons? Now Marquise Brown, again, not available, but Xavier Worthy with that speed element. Roquan Smith had some comments to the media a couple of days ago where he was asked, just what do you do against this Patrick Mahomes-led offense? And he said, well, you got to make them one-dimensional, stop the run, take that element out. And that caused a lot of controversy on both Ravens and Chiefs social media I saw. So I want to get it from you, Chris. What do you feel about those comments? Is the way to slow down or stop this offense making them one-dimensional and taking out that run game?
Good luck with that. That's all I'm going to say. I look at that and I laughed. I saw what he said. I get it to an extent because when you start looking at and when you want to just kind of be giving somebody an answer without really giving them a real answer, saying words but not really saying something, this is the kind of answer that you get because what do you talk about when you talk about football? You talk about trying to make a team one-dimensional. So it makes a ton of sense from that aspect. I don't think that's what you want to do against this Chiefs team, though. You're going to make this team one-dimensional and you're going to put the ball in Patrick Mahomes' hand. I think Andy Reid will take that every day of the week and 2 or 3 times on Sunday. And I think the rest of the Chiefs offense will as well. I'm curious to see how it turns out because I also know that Pacheco has worked his butt off this year. He has looked fantastic in camp. He came in healthy, which he hasn't been the past several years. He's had to have some surgeries after the Super Bowls. And so he came in at 100% healthy. He's been catching the ball out of the backfield, in training for that, trying to become a more well-rounded running back. So I do think that could play into this as well. Again, like I said, good luck with that because I'm really curious if they want to really try to get it to where Pacheco runs the ball 5 to 10 times. I'm pretty sure Patrick Mahomes would be happy. And with the weapons, which we'll talk about here in the next segment, I think that the rest of this Chiefs team would still be pretty happy as well.
Yeah, I kind of took it the way that you had said initially, the first part of your answer, where, you do want to make a team one-dimensional. Now, for Patrick Mahomes, is there stopping him? Probably not. You can slow him down as best you can, but he's going to get a couple of plays on you at least because, well, let's face it, he's Patrick Mahomes. So
Patrick, Kyle Hamilton last year had one of those plays. I mean, Kyle Hamilton, and I don't want to cut you off too much, but I do want to say this. Kyle Hamilton had a fantastic game against the Chiefs. And I know that there are a lot of people that say he got beat by Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce is one of the best tight ends that's ever played football. I think he's probably the best. And that touchdown pass he caught was a perfect pass. There is almost no defense for it at all whatsoever. And sometimes, no matter how good of a player you are, you're going to get beat by somebody making a perfect play.
Yeah, I would rather, hype up the play itself and say, yeah, that was a heck of a throw, heck of a catch, than rag on Kyle Hamilton for it because Hamilton was in pretty much perfect position, but Mahomes just made a better throw. against perfect position. And that's the type of player Mahomes is. We all know that. So again, you can try to make the Chiefs one-dimensional and try to slow down Patrick Mahomes. The defense for the Ravens certainly has a lot in front of them, especially with first-time defensive coordinator Zach Orr now at the helm instead of Mike McDonald.
Game Time makes getting to the ballpark even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Game Time has deals right up to the start of the event and even after it starts, up to an hour. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the free app and new users can get $20 off their first purchase with code Locked On. Terms apply. That's code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Can Jacoby Brissett get it done against the Cincinnati Bengals defense? And
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast.
Jacoby Brissett will be starting at quarterback. What's the biggest story going on right now with the Patriots offense?
Right now, Jake, that is the biggest story going on with the Patriots offense. The veteran Jacoby Brissett getting the ball over the number 3 overall pick, Drake May. Drake had a solid spring. He had a solid summer. He had a very good preseason, and that led a lot of people to believe that he may actually get the ball as early as this opening weekend. But ultimately, the Patriots erring on the side of caution. They looked at the offensive line, looked at all the factors involved. They looked at Drake's progression and his readiness to be able to start. And I think at this point, they decided that it was better to go with the veteran. And honestly, I think they made the right decision here. Obviously, the fan base in New England is eager to see what they have in Drake May, and they'll get a heavy dose of it in due time. But right now, Jacoby Brissett is a better navigator of the field and someone with a little bit more temperance to be able to read coverages at the line of scrimmage, be able to call plays when he needs to, and be able to go off script if he needs to as well. Drake is very good at going off script, but at this point, Jacoby Brissett has the temperance that the Patriots are going to need there. So this, to me, is going to be the biggest story heading into this matchup. Can the veteran Jacoby Brissett navigate through a makeshift offensive line to be able to find ways to get the football to his receivers and be able to facilitate the run? Alex Van Pelt's offense is predicated on using the run to set up deep shots down the field and to set up play action. The Patriots have to try to establish the run early here. If they don't, they're going to be in a heap of trouble.
Let's talk about that offensive line a little bit, because I assume that was a big factor in the Drake May decision. And I also assume that's probably why you mentioned they want to run the ball. It's probably to protect that offensive line a bit. So what are we looking at from the Patriots offensive line going into Sunday?
You're probably looking at a makeshift unit. The only name that I think Bengals fans may recognize at this point, and seeing who they have, well, I should say there are two. David Andrews, the center, has been an established member of this team, once again a team captain. Everything's going to run through him in the center position to try to navigate that line. But the Patriots also have Michael Wenu, who has played right guard, right tackle a little bit. He's their most established and probably their best offensive lineman when it comes to a skill set. But then you're looking at a lot of question marks, James. You're looking at possibly Chukwuekorafo taking snaps either on the right or the left side. He's a natural right tackle. He struggled on the left, but he has taken a good amount of snaps there. Darian Lowe, the veteran that the Patriots picked up last year, played a lot of left tackle. He's been injured. He did practice on Wednesday, was limited in that. So keep an eye on the injury reports throughout the week to find out if Darian is going to suit up on the left side. City So, their left guard, He's been banged up with an ankle injury. He's a name to watch as well. And the Patriots right now are struggling to fill that last spot, either in right guard or right tackle, with a mixture of the rookie Caden Wallace or possibly the rookie Layden Robinson. So a lot of question marks on this offensive line for New England right now. I think you hit the nail on the head when it comes to Jacoby Brissett. He might be best suited to be able to play through what I'm sure is going to be a fearsome Bengals defensive front, just eager to get after whatever quarterback they're facing on Sunday.
I would be terrified of that left tackle matchup with whoever it is, if it's a core four or if it's low, playing against Trey Hendrickson on an island. If the Patriots have to drop back and pass the ball, they're just not going to win the game.
Right.
I mean, that would be a place you don't want to be if you're the Patriots. And meanwhile, we're going to talk about this when we get to the Bengals defensive side of the ball. That Bengals run defense is going to be tested early in this game and early in this season. And that is a big question mark for the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's get to the defensive side of the ball for the Patriots, Mike. Something that looks like a strength to me by comparison to the offense, where it's not as exciting in New England. Am I on the right track there?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely on the right track, Jake. I think that when New England Patriots defense right now pulled them out of so many holes last year where these games could have gotten ugly in a hurry, this team actually was able to keep these players and keep this team in games with a strong defensive performance. Basically from the up front, from the front seven to the defensive secondary. Now, the Patriots are missing two key members of that defense that are going to really be glaring omissions. One is Matthew Judon, who is no longer a member of the New England Patriots. He was traded to the Atlanta Falcons. Patriots played the majority of the season without Matthew, but he was such a facilitator in the way this team likes to either rush the passer or be able to defend against the run. The Patriots need someone with that type of enthusiasm and also that type of energy to be able to be a facilitator the way Matthew was. And so far, that's been a difficult get for the New England Patriots. The other, perhaps the most important omission right now is Christian Barmore, suffering from blood clots earlier this year. Very scary situation. Christian is in good spirits. He was actually in the locker room on Wednesday visiting his teammates. So the hope is to get him back, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. So the Patriots need a lot of help from that defensive front seven in order to take pressure off of that secondary. Christian Gonzalez is going to be someone who is really, coming back from a season-ending injury last year. He's going to have to get back into the swing of things. That defense and that secondary can be tested, but it's going to be up to the front seven to put pressure and be able to protect them a little bit. It's going to be a tough task against Joe Burrow in this offense.
I find that so fascinating because to me, when I look at it, the secondary looks like the strength. And I think that the trenches don't scare me as much as some other teams do on the Bengals schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if the Bengals do play this game smartly, they will attack the Patriots' weaknesses on the front seven, because that secondary is the better part and that stronger part. And actually, the most importantly, Jake, it's the healthiest part of this Patriots team right now. So it's really going to be about whether or not the Pats front seven can find that X factor to be able to shore it up.
Some familiar faces on the Bengals offense when it comes to the Patriots. Obviously, we've had Ted Karras here for a couple of years in Cincinnati, but Mike Gesicki joining the team. And then Trent Brown, who was obviously a big part of the Super Bowl team in 2018. Was there ill will at the end of last year? It was kind of a weird situation there. How much is it being talked about, if at all, right now, as Drake May watches on, is the fact that Trent Brown is going to be facing the Patriots?
Yeah, I think if you probably hooked up either Jacoby or Drake to a lie detector test right now, they probably both want Trent Brown protecting their blind side. But yeah, I think there was probably a little bit of acrimony leaving, but I don't think it was as guttural as a lot of people would have you believe. It's not a major storyline coming out of New England right now, simply because I believe Trent felt that he had played his string here in New England and was looking for a new challenge. And I think New England was looking to get younger at the position, probably move on, not be able to shell out a large contract. I think it would have been more palatable for Patriots fans if they had selected a solid left tackle earlier on in the draft, or going after someone with an established history via free agency. But look, when Trent is locked in, he's one of the best tackles in the game. He's a mountain of a man that can absolutely get after it. Athleticism for a guy his size is extremely impressive. So he's going to be a problem for this defense coming up. Patriots have to account for it, but from a personal standpoint, I covered Trent for the years that he was here in New England. Never had a problem with him. I wish him nothing but the best. And I think Cincinnati will be happy with what he's going to bring to the table this season.
Part one of my conversation with Joe Mazzulla. Joe Mazzulla, appreciate you hopping on podcast for a little bit. How has your summer gone?
It's been good. I mean, it's funny. It hasn't really been any different than any other summer we've had since we've been in the NBA. You spend the month, usually a month after the season is kind of when I diagnose the entire season, because you have fresh in your mind what worked, what didn't, where you have to get better at. So you try to spend the next 30 to 45 days kind of doing that. And then you kind of unwind a little bit, and then you kind of filter back into just finding the themes and the concepts of what you can apply on where you need to get better. So the process remains the same. I like to travel a little bit. So really not that much different.
I mean, a little bit different. I mean, you don't normally take the Larry O'Brien trophy back to the Rhode Island State House. I mean, that's a little bit different from your usual summer, right? I mean, that had to feel good.
Yeah, I mean, that was great. It was great. Really, again, the goal at the beginning of the season was just, committing to the identity of the city and really the area, just, the Celtics being the area's team as far as New England. So the fact that we got to take it to a few places within Massachusetts, and then obviously yesterday getting to take it to Rhode Island and really just, I think I mentioned it in the speech about, I left Rhode Island at such a young age as a kid kind of, and now I've come back here as an adult and reconnecting with the relationships and the people that have kind of helped me get to where I am. Being able to say thank you in person that was fun.
I always believe that there's always, no matter where we go, no matter what we do in life, there's always a little piece of us that's still like stuck in high school. There's always like that little bit of, who we always were, who we were back then sticks with us. Now you're walking through Bishop Hendricken, right? You're going back to high school, walking through those hallways. You've got the trophy on you. That has to have like a little bit of a different kind of feeling, right? Like you're back to the old stomping ground, but here you are as a championship head coach. What was that feeling like?
It's funny. I still felt, I don't know if inadequate's the word, but my high school coach has won 15 state championship, has run 7 in a row and 4 in a row twice. And so like, it felt like I'm almost where he's at. But to me, it felt gratitude, like thanking him because, he coached me for 4 years. And I think, like you said, you do have pieces of everybody, whether it's in coaching or just in life. And I have pieces of Coach Gomes, and I have pieces of, there's still friendships today that I have at Bishop Hendricken. And so I think high school is the most important part of your years. And that's one of the best decisions I made. I'm grateful that I got to do that. I'm grateful I sent my son to a similar school, and just gratitude, being able to thank, there was about 5 or 6 coaches that are still there today that were there when I was there. And so just a sense of gratitude was really the coolest thing. And then also just reconnecting with the kids. I think you owe it to the people, after you. So just kind of being, I was in the weight room for a little while, I was on the court for a little while, just kind of being around kids and just giving back, I think is important.
So let's take it back to the night of the championship. I'm sitting there working. I see you and your wife, Kamei, walking around. I know you've talked about that moment a little bit. I know you guys have talked about kind of revisiting each other after seasons. Was that kind of like part of the start of that process? What was that moment like for you? And just in a bigger picture, like your relationship with your wife seems to be extraordinarily important, and it's something you bring up a lot. What does it mean to share that moment with her, and what's this summer been like?
Yeah, it's funny. We thought we were alone, but apparently we weren't.
Not alone in the afterglow of a championship.
It was the beginning of that process of just building perspective. We talked, that was kind of like our gratitude walk. That's something that's important to us, especially during the playoffs. We spent a lot of time together. She always travel. And it was just it was the first time all night that we thought we were alone, and we were alone from the standpoint of it was just us. And, I take those laps before the game for prayer and perspective. And after the game, it was the same. How are we, it was kind of recommitting to the things that, who we are to each other, and making sure that something like that didn't change us. And, we kind of listed all the things we were grateful for. And at the same time, it was like, we still have to wake up a day or two from now and be parents, and how was this going to change our marriage? And so it was just like a recommitment, and really it was a recommitment to ourselves and to our family, but also like a perspective of, kind of where we were. And you got to fight for those moments. And that's kind of what I think the summer has been, outside of trying to get better for the Celtics, is fighting for the moments to, make sure your marriage and your family are still the two most important things before anything else.
Has it helped the process for you coaching wise that she was a coach and she was an athlete, and like maybe she kind of gets some of it maybe more than in somebody else would?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think even further, she was a single mom. So she has this like competitive, she was a single mom for a while. And so she has this competitive desire and like this, go get it mentality. And, she refuses to allow anything to kind of get in her way. And so that helps. I think also she's allows me to kind of, do the things that I need to do, or I think I need to do, in order to be at my absolute best. And so, I think, just like with our team, if she doesn't give me the full support, and if I don't feel like she's got my back, I can't do it. And she has that. So I'm grateful for that. It's her birthday today.
Oh, wow. Happy birthday.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what do you got? You doing anything special? Come on.
I took her we went to the US Open. She's a big tennis fan. So that was,
okay.
You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. For that $5 bet, you could look at an NFL future. Everyone wants to be a #1 receiver who will lead all wide receivers in yards. FanDuel has 3 players with odds 9-1 or shorter. FanDuel has Tyreek Hill, the favorite to lead the league in receiving, at +650. CeeDee Lamb right behind him, doesn't have a contract, +750. And then Justin Jefferson checks in at 9-1. Interestingly enough, both Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamar Chase have 11-1 odds. And I like both of those a lot. So I'm on Rob St. Brown in particular on that one. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Denver Broncos have come to terms with Patrick Surtain on a historic contract.
You are Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast.
Sarah, obviously, we woke up this morning with our cup of coffee, and we saw instantly the notification comes out. The Denver Broncos and Patrick Surtain agree to terms on a historic contract extension, a 4-year deal extension here for PS2, $96 million, $77.5 million guaranteed, where he'll make $24 million per year, resetting the cornerback and the defensive back market significantly. And as we've seen deals happen this offseason, we said, hey, when Pat gets paid, he's going to get the bag. He got the bag.
He got the bag in a big way. And in my opinion, Cody, this deal continues to further prove what we've been saying for the last handful of months here. The Denver Broncos internally, they do not believe that they are a rebuilding team. You don't give out record-setting contracts to cornerbacks or to Quinn Miners, who's the highest paid, I believe the highest paid interior lineman in Broncos history and one of the highest paid in the NFL today. You don't make moves like that if you believe that you're a rebuilding team. Now, I know even rebuilding teams do need core foundational pieces to the roster, but this is the type of move that is indicative of a team that is very clearly bought in to its present, to its future, and Pat Surtain is the present and the future for the Denver Broncos. Like you mentioned, Cody, $96 million over 4 years, and it includes a massive guarantee. I kind of thought Pat would get over $100 million in total money, but you know what? I don't think he's complaining one bit today, as he is the highest paid, as you said, defensive back in NFL history. A crazy deal that resets the market. We knew it was going to happen at some point. And you know what? I had a little ceremonial tag ripping ceremony here just a little bit ago. I was going to do it live on the air, Cody, but I couldn't contain myself. I couldn't contain the excitement. I got the Pat Surtain jersey. We had a bunch of people in the comments earlier this offseason warning me like, hey, don't take the tags off that. You don't know if he's going to get traded before the draft. I've had the tags on this entire time, and now I finally got to take the tags off. So you know what? Those are going in the trash, and the PS2 jersey can finally breathe here.
No, 100%. And look, now the Broncos have security, and the Broncos fan base has security knowing that one of the top cornerbacks in the NFL is locked in. One of the lockdown guys is locked into a long-term deal. And look, the Broncos investment, like, how did we get to this point? Because you brought it up in terms of all the trade rumors when the Broncos were losing, saying, hey, like, they may look to offset Pat Surtain to acquire first-round picks so that they can move up to get, a guy like Caleb Williams. Like, that was something that circulated last season for the Broncos. Like, the Broncos will probably try to embrace the tank. Sean Payton, George Payton, the Walton Penner family ownership group have stood firm in their belief that, hey, they're going to find a way to build this roster to fix what, holes that they had there. And certainly they've made a lot of moves. Now, think about this now. You have a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix on a rookie contract right now. If he pans out, that's great news. But you also have, weapons defensively. You have someone who can take the football away to get Bo Nix the football back. You've invested in the trenches on the offensive line to help build sustainability on the offensive side. I think Denver's approach here from a roster building standpoint, this is the smart way to do it. And look, we're anticipating, hey, that price tag was going to go up. It was going to go up. It was going to go up as more cornerbacks did there. And now Pat has kind of set the foundation. He's made it harder for other NFL agents. Look, Sauce Gardner in the next year or so is going to be looking to get a new contract extension with the New York Jets. This makes it a little more difficult for them financially, considering, what they have with Aaron Rodgers, where they're at as a team, what changes could be coming their way if the Jets have a losing season. There's all that stuff. And you can check out Locked On NFL for more conversation on stuff like that. But the accumulation of Pat Surtain becoming a Denver Bronco with that 9th overall pick in the 2021 NFL draft, the people saying, whoa, I thought Denver was going to take Justin Fields. Pat came out right away, 4 interceptions his rookie season. I think he had 15 passes defense that year. He has emerged into an all-pro guy, 7 career interceptions, over 36 passes defense, 150 tackles, and recognition from his peers. You look at the NFL Top 100. You look at the NFLPA Players All-Pro vote. Pat Surtain, first team for 2 consecutive years. That is high respect for one of the NFL's best young guys.
It really is. And he has earned that respect as somebody who's looked like a pro since he was an 18-year-old kid at Alabama. I mean, we talked about that when he was drafted. Just looked like a pro, plays like a pro, very technically sound, doesn't make a ton of noise out there in terms of, doing all the chirping. We know there's some talkers out there at cornerback in the NFL, but Pat is not that kind of guy. He kind of goes about his business humbly. And he's somebody that I think he's set such a high standard for himself, Cody. There was comparisons and continued to be comparisons about, man, Pat Surtain kind of reminds us of Champ Bailey, in a lot of different ways, the way that he goes about his business, just the fact that he is kind of that quiet type of guy at the cornerback position who you don't throw the ball his direction. What did they say? 70% of the earth is covered by water. The rest is covered by Champ Bailey. Well, now we can officially pass that torch to Pat Surtain, and I love that. The Broncos country gets to rally around a superstar like this. It's one of those types of deals that, man, you can really hang your hat on as a fan to say, you know what, like Pat Surtain is one of those, he's truly one of those jersey guys. Like I bought my son a Pat Surtain jersey because that's the type of guy that you want to see represented among the fan base. He's a star in every possible way. And now, man, he's got the bag and he's got a new heap of expectations put on his shoulders right before the start of the season, which I find the timing very interesting on this deal, Cody. Right before the Seahawks game, obviously, in a couple of days here, Pat Surtain getting this deal done.
Game Time makes getting to the ballpark even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Game Time has deals right up to the start of the event and even after it starts, up to an hour. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the free app and new users can get $20 off their first purchase with code Locked On. Terms apply. That's code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So Matt Chapman is going to be staying with the Giants.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast.
The news release came about 25 minutes ago, and I read it. Matt Chapman, who signed a contract from Toronto with San Francisco that had tons of opt-outs. He had opt-out this, said opt-out that, and a player option here, team option there. Well, all those were rolled up into a ball and thrown into McCovey Cove. As the official announcement came about, and it says the Giants agreed to a 6-year contract extension with Matt Chapman. This is the news release as that was on Twitter or whatever the hell it's called now. The Giants and infielder Matt Chapman agreed to a 6-year contract extension beginning next year through the 2030 season, worth $151 million tomatoes. He'll earn $25 million each season. Good work if you can get it. And he'll be making over $100,000 donation to the Giants Community Fund each year. Blah, 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 blah. Giants president of operation for David Bob Melvin, third baseman Matt Chapman, and Chapman's attorney Scott Boras will be available to the media tomorrow at 10:30 in the press room. I like this move for the Giants. Of course, it could backfire him. Anytime you sign a long-term contract, someone whose 30th birthday is in the rearview mirror is dangerous. Every year we go through which team made this bad contract or that bad contract, and every year it's a contract that was celebrated when it first happened. But he's 31. He still has power. He's still a good defensive third baseman. And if the Giants want to get off the schneid, this is a team that has made the postseason once since Bruce Bochy left, once since the 2016 frustrating wild card year where they beat the Mets and they had a couple of chances to basically put the Cubs on the ropes, and they didn't, and they lost. And since then, and by the way, that Obama was president when that happened. All right. And it's been a bit. Since then, they've made the postseason once, the 107-win season of 2021, which is looking more and more like a fluke every year. But having Chapman is a good step. The Giants have been drooling to sign a major free agent. And, will they try to go for Ohtani or they try to go for Judge? I think they should go full blast on Soto. And that they have a guy who is an all-star, who is a gold glove, a platinum glove winner, has pop, who's from the Bay Area, probably should have been in Oakland A for life, but isn't. And by the way, let's review something here. As you know, as some of you know, I'm also the host of Locked On A's this year. And the A's are in a predicament because the management isn't spending money. They've been basically tanking the team to make their move to Las Vegas, which I still do not believe is happening. I actually still think they're going to stay in Sacramento. But even that, as I mentioned on the show, I went to Sacramento in a day game in July. It's going to be brutal there. They've whiffed on draft picks, but they've also whiffed on trades. They had Matt Chapman. Matt Chapman, first-round pick in 2014, was an excellent player for the A's, but he asked for more than $3.25 an hour, so naturally had to be traded. He was traded just before the start of the 2022 season in an unabashed salary dump. And when you take a look at this, they was traded to the Blue Jays for 4 minor leaguers. Now, it could be if some of those players hit, they could have, wow, they got 2 or 3 players back for Chapman and built a team. Except they completely whiffed. Gunnar Hoglund, one of the prospects they got from Toronto, has played 0 games in the major leagues. Zach Loke, Kevin Smith, they might as well have gotten the director of clerks. Zach Loke, Kevin Smith, and Kirby Snead were the other 3 players. Every one of those players has either been cut, waived, or non-tendered. So they essentially gave Matt Chapman to the Toronto Blue Jays for 4 guys. That was for the 2022 season. So 2022, 2023, and 2024, the A's could have had Matt Chapman. Instead, they have 4 guys who are not in the organization. Good job. But the Bay Area guy, who oddly is from Victorville, which is, I think, probably closer to Sacramento, if I know my Northern California geography correct. But he is a graduate of Cal State Fullerton, as I will be in just a few months. I'm sure your pal Sully is earning his master's degree.
You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV-based plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. For that $5 bet, you could look at an NFL future. Everyone wants to be a #1 receiver who will lead all wide receivers in yards. FanDuel has 3 players with odds 9-1 or shorter. FanDuel has Tyreek Hill, the favorite to lead the league in receiving at +650. CeeDee Lamb right behind him, doesn't have a contract, +750. And then Justin Jefferson checks in at 9-1. Interestingly enough, both Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamar Chase have 11-1 odds. And I like both of those a lot. So I'm on Rob St. Brown in particular on that one. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Cubs combined for a no-hitter.
You are Locked On Cubs, your daily Chicago Cubs podcast.
Shota Imanaga, Nate Pearson, and Porter Hodge combined for a no-hitter on Wednesday as the Cubs crushed the Pirates 12-0. It was the 18th no-hitter in Cubs history, the first since 2021, and the first at Wrigley Field since 1972. Sam, the Cubs end up salvaging the Pirates series in historic fashion after dropping the first 2.
What a wild night. I tweeted this out and I haven't gotten an answer yet. The Cubs were about 1.5 inches away from, I don't know if this is true, but there's a good chance. I would assume there's never been a cycle and a no-hitter by the same team in the same game. Because if that PCA ball hits the chalk, there's a really good chance he probably gets 3 bases there. It was a really unique outing for Imanaga in the sense that after the second inning, they had Neely warming up.
Oh, that's right.
And we didn't really know, was there something going on physically for him? Was he not feeling well, whatever it is? And through 2, he had walked a couple guys and it looked like he might be grinding. And then the next 5 innings were just absolutely flawless from him. He got a big lead. It was a much better hitting environment today. The ball carried for the Cubs, and facing Domingo Germán instead of Jones and Skeens sure made a difference. But yeah, it was a crazy night. I mean, Alex Cohen got a chance to sub in and called a lot of history. I mean, there was a real chance. I mean, first of all, it was a lot of history. They threw a no-hitter. And then, there was some stuff. There was more. Tellez pitched. The Cubs scored a bunch of runs.
Oh, my gosh. Again, he pitched. He pitched last week.
It was just a kind of a wild game. And, as far as the series goes, Matt, I think you and I think very similarly, when we go into series. I think we have a pretty similar philosophy. And I was thinking about this early, fourth, fifth inning when this game was out of reach, that outside of one inning, this series went exactly the way you and I thought it would go. You knew one of the first two games they were just going to have to grind away to win. It wasn't going to be runs galore. And then you felt really comfortable in game three. So, I think in a vacuum, it's just one of those where if this was May or June, you'd say, all right, well, Lopez had a rough day and, it is what it is. But because of where the Cubs got put, it got magnified. And then, of course, today we'll talk about it, him going on the IL. But really special night. And to me, when I think about this combined no-hitter, I'm putting that in quotes. To me, it's a celebration of Imanaga and his success this year. He's been the Cubs' best pitcher. He's been the Cubs' best player. He's been their most consistent, both. And, he delivered again.
Yeah, he really did. And, this was the last game of that 18-game stretch. We'll talk about that later in the show, just because I have a couple theories as well. Really coming up after these next 3 to 6 games, I do wonder what the Cubs could do, and I want to get your thoughts on that. Imanaga, 7 no-hit innings with 2 walks and 7 strikeouts. I thought that when he exited after the second, he had an issue that he had to take care of, so Neely was playing catch just in case.
Got it.
We can't talk about it much on the air.
That's what I figured as well.
So if the Cubs went down quietly, maybe he doesn't come back out and make history.
Got it.
In 26 starts this year, Imanaga has allowed more than 3 runs just 3 times.
Unbelievable.
And the Cubs are now 20-6 when he pitches.
And I think 13-1 after a loss or something like that. Or 14-1.
Wow.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I saw that today too.
Yo, this guy's been the MVP of the team, right?
Easily.
Not even close.
It's
man.
not close. It's not close.
Aside from the last 3-4 weeks at PCA, the Cubs haven't had any players like Imanaga.
Well, aside from Wisdom.
Right. Right. Wisdom and against the A's in April of 2023. But no, I enjoyed this one. Cubs with 2 3-run innings, a couple 2-run innings in there, homers from Swanson, PCA, and Bellinger, 3 hit games from 3 guys, 2 hit games from 3 more guys. So, they really were in cruise control from an early point. Imanaga was sharper as the game went on, as you pointed out. And I didn't think anything of it when he exited after the 7th.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you might have.
No, I just want to make this point. There's a lot of people out there that are, debating, should he be finished?
Who is?
Should he not?
Who's debating?
Michael.
You need to name it.
Michael Cerami wanted him to finish the game.
Okay.
Plenty of people wanted him to finish. I'm reading our comments. Why didn't he finish? Why didn't he finish?
Well,
And
are people's TVs broke? Guys don't finish no hitters anymore.
But see, so that's the point. So I want to make. I just want to do this briefly. The debate isn't should have he finished. I can't even speak. Should he have finished or should he not? The debate is how come it is now commonplace for guys not to finish anymore. And 35, 40, 55, 60 years ago, guys threw 300 plus innings, no problem. And don't tell me they didn't throw as hard as Shota Imanaga and stuff like that. Fergie Jenkins threw 300 plus innings. Bob Gibson did so. Nolan Ryan. Nolan Ryan's 77 years old, and I've heard he still throws 80 plus. And
that'd actually be kind of cool to see.
And those guys were able to throw 300 innings plus. And now we're in this era of, like you said, you're right, Matt. Nobody does it anymore. And Craig Counsell, I don't blame him one bit not sending him out there. The debate is, let's have a nuanced conversation by somebody that's way smarter than me going, hey, why are guys getting hurt so much? Why do we have to protect them so much? Because we sit here and talk about pace of play and all these things to make the game better. You know what's fun? Watching a guy throw a no-hitter at Wrigley Field. But he can't do that because that's not what happens anymore. But 60 plus years ago, Fergie Jenkins could throw 11 innings in a game. And he was throwing 97 plus. So that's food for thought for everybody out there. I'm not smart enough to answer that question.
Well, I had quesadillas for dinner.
I am smart enough to propose it. Your thoughts on that, Matthew?
I can think of two words immediately, Sam. One is careful. And then the other non-PC word would be coddling.
Okay.
That's my response.
And I absolutely agree. And maybe it's something we think about.
Careful and coddling.
And maybe we think about, changing that.
Careful and coddling will be the name of our morning show launching January 2025.
Can I ask you a question before we talk about news and notes? Are you at all has it occurred to you that Dansby Swanson is essentially having the exact opposite season that he had last season?
No, it hasn't.
Last year, he was really good, basically through mid-August, and then completely fell off a cliff. This year, he was really bad, basically through mid-August, speaking offensively only here. And now he's been as good as anybody since the middle of August. Thoughts on that?
Well, it's weird because it throws out my theory in about 10, 12 minutes that they might shut him down after these next 3 games.
Okay.
Because he's improved. And we think there might be something bugging him with his knee. He's one of the examples that we'll talk about second segment of the Cubs waiting a little bit too long on some things this year, in particular when it comes to player health and injuries after the Steele and Lopez news, especially in the case of Lopez. But no, it didn't occur to me until you told me that. And, when people do this pairing of PCA Amaya, it really is Swanson, PCA Amaya, 7, 8, 9. And it's pretty amazing in a unfortunate way that the Cubs played with, for a long time, 7 batters.
Yep.
And even those 7 batters, like 5 were average most of the year. And now they're playing with 9 batters and, probably 6, probably about the same, like 5, 6 average. And, it's like, look what happens. So, as we start to document the season more and more, I just think their slowness in nature in a number of different ways did cost them a spot in the playoffs, which was the goal.
Yep.
And, I personally don't like when people, Marquis does it all the time. They're like, oh, well, Amaya has stepped up and PCA and Swanson. It's like, no, Swanson's supposed to do this.
Right.
He didn't step up. He failed for a big part of the year. And he's doing what he's supposed to be doing now. Am I going in too hard on that?
No.
Well, how has he stepped up? He's a $177 million player. How is that stepping up? That's what you're supposed to do.
And I want to ask you, because you're really doing well with this. We flipped roles. I'd like to ask you one more question, just briefly. Yeah. The Cubs, obviously, most likely 99%, 98% will not make the postseason.
Right.
Are you, and I'm not asking this to be facetious. I think I need to stop talking.
Okay.
And
you can't because it's a talk show.
I'm not trying to be sarcastic. I'm not even trying to set you up. I'm genuinely asking.
Go Cubs.
Would you take any solace in the fact that the Cubs?
Well, it's solace, I believe.
Did I say? I'm telling you.
You said solstice or something.
It's a bad take.
Would you take any pride in the fact if the Cubs do finish with like an 86, 87 win season, but don't make it because that's right where we had them pegged before the season? Go ahead.
No.
Okay.
Because then I have to do an Excel sheet of the 29 blown games that they had. And then I have to stare at those until March. What game do you want it to pick that they blew? No, there's no solace in that or solstice, because
I'd like to take a long.
That's just going to put salt in the wound.
I need to get my speech checked out.
Okay.